Shalom, shalom, guys. I would like to bring some truth to you this evening. And it is late Friday afternoon. We are headed into the seventh day, and I want to share some truth with you. Now, this is coming from some writings that I did more than 10 years ago, and I pray that this is something that you will find as a blessing, and I hope that this challenges you. Now, this particularly is aimed at my brothers who are Christians or would call themselves as Christians. You come to my channel often looking for truth with regards to headship and patriarchy, marriage, all these things. Let's talk about something else that the scripture says. And let's talk for a few minutes and see if we can find out what the Most High has to say instead of what man-made tradition says. So I challenge you, buckle your seatbelts. Here we go. So Christians, please, I need your help with understanding exactly what this says, okay? So I have 4 boys, most of whom are grown now, but when they were teenagers, we did not have a communication problem. If I told them what I needed them to do or what I wanted them to do, they understood. If I told them clearly once or twice, I should have a reasonable expectation that they would do it. Am I correct? What if I gave them the same instruction, say 5 times? How about 5 times? What if I gave them the same instruction 5 times? Should I have a reasonable expectation that they would do what I told them to do? What if I gave them the exact same instruction 9 times? 9 times. And I never told them anything contrary to that. Should I have a reasonable expectation that they would do exactly what I told them to do? See, my thought is if they continue to disobey me on the matter, they can't plead ignorance, can they? What if the babysitter comes along and says, no, you don't have to do what your dad says, just do what I tell you to do? Should they still obey me? Does the babysitter have the authority to overturn my instructions to my boys? What do you think? See, here's the dilemma, and this is maybe what you can help me understand. I, at that time, was the wayward teen who heard my father say something 9 times, but I ignored it because the babysitter said I didn't have to do that. Said it was okay. You don't have to do what your dad says. He wasn't serious. See, now I look back and I realize that I was, and today even am, without excuse, because the instructions the Most High gave have never changed, so my disobedience was sin. Later, I was the babysitter who told those who were in my care they could just ignore what the father said. I supported what I said with some fancy logic, but I had no real evidence that the father had ever changed his instructions. So I want to give you some instructions. What exactly am I getting at? Okay, and this is what I want you to help me understand. Okay, our Father in heaven, the Most High, has given us a commandment 9 times. 9. I have to figure out how many fingers to hold up here, right? Depends on which hand I'm putting up. 9 times, right? He gave us 9 times he gave us this instruction. So what I want to do is I want to walk through these 9 passages of Scripture that have the same instruction. And some of you, your eyes will glaze over and your ears will stop up, and all of a sudden it'll sound like peanuts. Walk, 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 walk. I don't want that to happen. I want you to focus. This is the word of the Most High, and I'm going to put it up in slides so that you can read it with me as we go. I'm going to read you 9 passages of Scripture. And then we're going to talk about it because I want you to help me understand something. Okay? So here we go. Remember the Sabbath day to keep it holy. 6 days you shall labor and do all your work, but the seventh day is a Sabbath of Yahweh your Elohim. In it you shall do no work, you or your son or your daughter, your male or female servant, or your cattle, or your sojourner who's staying with you. For in 6 days Yahweh made the heavens and earth, the sea and all that is in them, and rested on the seventh day. Therefore Yahweh blessed the Sabbath day and made it holy. That comes from Exodus chapter 20. In Exodus chapter 16 we read, Moshe said, "Eat it today, for today is a Shabbat, or a Sabbath to Yahweh. Today you will not find it in the field," and he's talking about manna. 6 days you shall gather it, but on the seventh day, the Shabbat, there will be none. It came about on the seventh day that some of the people went out to gather, but they found none. Then Yahweh said to Moshe, "How long do you refuse to keep my commandments and my instructions? See, Yahweh has given you the Shabbat. Therefore, he gives you bread for 2 days. On the sixth day, remain every man in his place. Let no man go out of his place on the Shabbat," or on the seventh day. So the people rested on the seventh day. In Exodus chapter 23, he says, 6 days you are to do your work, but on the seventh day you shall cease from labor, so that your ox and your donkey may rest, and the son of your female slave as well as your stranger may refresh themselves. In Exodus chapter 31, we have a passage starting in verse 12. It says, Yahweh spoke to Moshe, saying, "But as for you, speak to the sons of Israel, saying, you shall surely observe my Shabbats. For this is a sign between me and you throughout your generations, that you may know that I am Yahweh who sanctifies you. Therefore, you are to observe the Shabbat, for it is holy to you. Everyone who profanes it shall surely be put to death, for whoever does any work on it, that person shall be cut off from among his people. For 6 days work may be done, but on the seventh day there is a Shabbat of complete rest, holy to Yahweh. Whoever does any work on the Shabbat shall surely be put to death. So the sons of Israel shall observe the Shabbat, to celebrate the Shabbat throughout their generations as a perpetual covenant. It is a sign between me and the sons of Israel forever. For in 6 days Yahweh made heaven and earth, but on the seventh day he ceased from labor and was refreshed." Now, a quick note for you. I'm using my coffee cup that says Shema Israel, or listen, hear Israel. And Shema means more than just hear. It means hear and do. And this is how Deuteronomy chapter 6, verses 4 and following begin. Shema Israel, Yahweh Eloheinu, Yahweh Echad, right? Shema, hear. I want you to hear what I'm saying here. Let's continue with this passage. The next passage comes from Exodus chapter 34. You shall work 6 days, but on the seventh day you shall rest. Even during plowing time and harvest you shall rest. And Exodus chapter 35 says, For 6 days work may be done, but on the seventh day you shall have a holy Shabbat of complete rest to Yahweh. Whoever does any work on it shall be put to death. This is a death penalty issue. A death penalty issue. How about the next passage out of Leviticus chapter 23? Speak to Bnei Israel, the sons of Israel, and say to them, Yahweh's appointed times, which you shall proclaim as holy convocations. This is times to gather and worship. My appointed times are these. For 6 days work may be done, but on the seventh day there is a Sabbath of complete rest, a holy convocation. You shall not do any work in it. It is a Sabbath to Yahweh in all your dwellings. These are the appointed times of Yahweh, holy convocations which you shall proclaim at the times appointed for them. And then in Deuteronomy chapter 5, it says, Observe the Shabbat to keep it holy, as Yahweh your Elohim commanded you. 6 days you shall labor and do all your work. But the seventh day is a Shabbat to Yahweh your Elohim. In it you shall not do any work, you or your son or your daughter or your male servant or your female servant or your ox or your donkey or any of your cattle or your sojourner who stays with you, so that your male servant and your female servant may rest as well. You shall remember that you were a slave in the land of Mitzrayim, and Yahweh your Elohim brought you out of there by a mighty hand and by an outstretched arm. Therefore, Yahweh your Elohim commanded you to observe the Shabbat. And the last instance that we have goes back to Genesis chapter 1, at the end of chapter 1 into the beginning of chapter 2. It says, Elohim saw all that he had made, and behold, it was very good. And there was evening and there was morning the sixth day. Thus the heavens and the earth were completed, and all their hosts. By the seventh day, Elohim completed his work which he had done, and he rested on the seventh day from all his work which he had done. Then Yahweh blessed the seventh day and sanctified it, because in it he rested from all his work which Elohim had created and made. Now, where has this ever changed? Our Father gave us this commandment 9 times. 9 times. It may be the most attested instruction in all of Scripture. Certainly, we see Yeshua keeping the Shabbat, right? He shemad. He did. He heard and did what the commandments say. How about read the book of Acts? Take out your search engine, your Blue Letter Bible app, pull it up and search Sabbath, and see how many times that shows up in the book of Acts. You won't find anything else. You want to look in the book of Acts, check it out. Paul always kept the Shabbat, as did the other apostles. In fact, there's not a single instance in all of Scripture of the Shabbat being changed, annulled, abrogated, altered, abolished, done away with, or any other euphemistic denial of the command. Not one. It's not there. In fact, if you do your research, you'll find in 325 AD, Constantine had to use the sword to force Christians at that time to cease worshiping on the Shabbat and begin worshiping on the day of the sun. He was a worshiper of Sol Invictus. He was of the Mithras religion. Different story, not going to go there right now. Scripture is where we want to focus. Where in Scripture did it ever change? God commanded it 9 times. He even said forever a couple times. How about this? Isaiah chapter 66 verse 23 tells us that the Shabbat will be kept after the earth is judged by fire. Look at Isaiah chapter 66 verses 16 and 17. After the earth is judged by fire, we're keeping the Shabbat. That's future prophecy. So here's what I need help from you in understanding. Christians, by what leap of logic do we trust the words of pastors over the word of our Father? Will we not be held accountable for ignoring his commands and following the counter instructions of others? Show me. I can't find a single scripture that prophesies or commands a change. I find no support in Scripture for a change of days. Zero, zilch, nada, now. It's not there. Just not there. Prove me wrong. Let's discuss this. Put it in the comments. Show me where I'm wrong. I dare you. For King and Kingdom, I bid you shalom.